Hello, Big Blue World. This is Britt Boles. Welcome to another episode of Blue Biographies. This is our last episode of season 2022. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful season of getting to know farmers, artisans, growers from all over the globe. And today I'm honored to meet with Eric Cheung. Hi, Eric.
Hi.
And Eric is in Hong Kong and a co-founder of Dyelicious House and Indigood House. And Eric, would you just tell us a little bit about who you are, where you are, and what kind of indigo-bearing plants you grow there?
Yep, sure. And hi, everyone. I'm Eric from Dyelicious. And I started my natural dyeing journey in 2012. On that day, I accidentally get dirt from my shirts by some curry. And then I found out that food do have color. And then the food waste issues in Hong Kong is quite severe. So that I started working my first dyeing project on food waste color. And then till 2016, I discovered that in Hong Kong, there are some traditional culture that we are using Chinese indigos, as we call Hakka blue, for making our color in the old days. But due to technologies and then chemical dyes that they are just being wiped out from nowadays. So we're trying to replant the Chinese indigos in Hong Kong and trying to see whether we can bring the old cultures back and check whether the Hakka blue could be also one of the things that we could be focusing in Hong Kong. And then starting from 2016, I do start doing some research and looking for the indigos hidden in Hong Kong. And then starting from 2018, I start working on my farm. And then till this year, we're having our second farm. And then the area that we are planting are now close to 4,000 square feet in 2 farms.
Incredible. What an amazing journey just from a meal. It all started with some color and a meal and curiosity, it sounds like, too. So I'm curious to know, what was your introduction to textile arts? Had you already had experience with any textile mediums, any textile art forms prior to?
Actually, my background is an environmental scientist. And then I do know nothing about textile before I start any dyeing projects. But at the beginning, I met my partner, and she is also our co-founder from Dyelicious, and she is a designer, but a product designer. And then one day we are thinking about whether we can do something about social design. And in 10 years before, it's quite a headline projects for doing some social design, and we're trying to find some social issues to solve with. And then we are taking a look on food waste issues, so that we try different lots of projects, from turning food waste into paper or maybe soap and lots of stuff. And then finally, we do have a great result in our food waste coloring project, so that we start working on it. So all knowledge about textile dyeing start from there.
Excellent. And so what was your first indigo plant that you met?
The first indigo plant for sure is the Chinese indigo, but it's not easy for us to search with it, as from those historical readings, we do have to go through in the forest in Hong Kong. There haven't any roads for us to go through it. We have to just walk along with the riverside and then walk about for 2 hours into the middle of the mountains, and then search for them, doing some testing. As at that time, we do all the details about those plants are just photos from the internet, so that it really takes us long for doing the search. But after the first time we find them next to the river in the mountains, we discover that, at those rural village that have been left for about maybe 50 to 60 years, those Chinese indigo are just planting right inside the village.
Oh, okay. Incredible. So were you able to find other artisans there who were working with the plant as well?
No, they are just left behind in those rural village. And then just like no one is really taking care about them, and no one is caring about them. No one is interested about what they are. They're just left aside.
Yep. And what is the history with the Hakka blue? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, about the history of Hakka blue is Hong Kong is the civilization of Hong Kong is coming from mainland China, and then they are mostly from 4 groups of people. One will be local Hong Kong, and then one will be the Hakka people, and they move from inland from the China because of different reasons. About in 200 to 300 years before, with some policies about China that they're trying to move people to different areas. And then at that time, the Hakka people in China, they're using Chinese indigo for making dye, for dyeing the clothes, to make it have a deep and dark color, to make sure when they're doing farming, they're not easy to get dirt. And then one of the cultures are maybe sourced from Yunnan or maybe different regions. And at that time, people move into Hong Kong, they also bring along with these plants. But we still can't find any readings about whether those plants are original in Hong Kong before that time, or really how they're bringing to here. But in recent readings, they are classified as local plants in Hong Kong, as those readings are just maybe from the 18 something. So it's not easy to get back to the real stuff from the old days. And then when people move, those Hakka people move to Hong Kong, they also bring along with the cultures. They start planting them, making colors, but those times they are just using for themselves, just for homemade use, not like Taiwan. Taiwan, they are planting those Chinese indigo for selling, and then for shipping to Japan or worldwide. So that there are not many records about the Chinese indigos or the indigo history in Hong Kong, so that we're just finding them about bits by bits. Mostly are from the old people, the grannies. They are used to live in those Hakka village before. And by comparing to the plants that we're finding in different leftover village, and then so that we can do some matching about those stories from the people and about those plants that we find in the village or those different areas, to make sure that they are in the same line. Yep.
Yeah, that's fascinating to learn about. And this is also the same plant that parts of it are used medicinally as well. Is that right?
Yeah. In Chinese, they do call them Ban Lam Gan. And then Ban Lam is Chinese name of wood, Chinese wood. And then they define as 2 different kinds of medical use plants of those indigo. One will be the Northern, but Ban Lam. The first word but means that north, and then Ban Lam is about wood, and this is planted in northern China, and then they are equals to the species of wood, and they are using the roots of the wood for making medicine. And then the other kinds that they call Lam Ban Lam, which is southern wood in the Chinese word, but actually they are Chinese indigo. Okay. And then they are also using the roots of those Chinese indigo for making another kind of medicine. And then for the medicine, you say they're slightly different in between them, but sometimes they're just calling them Ban Lam Gan, which means the root of the wood, for selling them in mixture of powder. And then they're talking about they're good for flu.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, interesting. So when do you think the home home use of indigo started to subside? Did it really coincide with the introduction of synthetic dyes? And is that why, the plant stopped being used?
I don't got any significant figures about the reason why the homemade indigos are stopped using in Hong Kong, but mostly the reason is maybe due to synthetic dyes, or those villagers, they could easily buy the clothes that dyed by synthetic dyes easily in the Hong Kong market, and they are much in a lower price comparing them to planting them and making them into indigos and dyeing them. As you know, farmers all days, they do earn money by growing their crops, so that comparing to it, it's much easier to buy the garments rather than the planting and dye them. So they are trying to transform mostly of the farmland by turning from part of them planting Chinese indigo then to the crops. But nowadays that Hong Kong only about 3% of the crops are supported by the local, so that which means that they are really, really quite small amount of us are really working on farming in Hong Kong.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm wondering about the community there and how do they respond to you growing indigo now as a farm, and are the locals there excited about buying product from you, or are they interested in buying the raw dye stuffs like pigment from you and using it in their work? What is kind of the journey been around educating the community and the public around why you're farming indigo again?
Yep. The culture for having indigos in Hong Kong do have a great start in 2014. Not that earlier, it's just quite close with their 1 or 2 dyeing studio at that time start promoting those Japanese indigos, as they do have nice color. And then starting by then, lots of studios in Hong Kong are trying to work on handcraft with indigos or dyeing stuff. Till now, from those figures that we do got research is about 30 something, and different scales of the studio are using indigos. And then I shall say about less than 10 of them, or maybe less than 5, they do use local indigos. And then there are not much indigo farmers in Hong Kong. We are one of the largest. And then there will be another one that he grew his own indigo starting from 2014 or 16 in the Lantau Island in Hong Kong, but not really in a large scale, as I know before. I'm not sure whether how the scale are in these 2 years. And in recent 2 years, 1 or 2 years, that the chat, which have been invited in few weeks before also in the series, they start working on a project on planting indigos, local indigos, but they are working on the real true indigo from India and also from Taiwan for their species. And then Ben the farmer is also working on them. And yes, for the amount of indigo that we produce in Hong Kong is still really, really small. And then most of them are not doing commercial selling other than us. We do sell about 200 kilograms per year last year.
Yeah, wow.
And then mostly the indigos are import from China, and then some of them import pigments from indigos, which not most of them are Sukumo, but some of them are from powders, import from India to Japan, then from Japan to Hong Kong.
Okay.
And so that the cultures of indigos in Hong Kong are quite global, as I should say, globals, and they are having different kinds of methods And then nowadays, most are still working on how to make use of the pigments for dyeing their garments and product rather than planting them. As you know, farming is really not an easy thing.
It's hard work. Yeah. And you're not just working with one indigo species, you're growing 5 different indigo bearing plants, right? Can you talk a little bit about each one of those and how you started?
For sure,
Yeah.
For sure, we do plant those Chinese indigo, then we can show some sample of them. And these are the Chinese indigos that there are some rumors that they can also could be grown from cuttings.
Right.
And these are some cutting samples. We're doing some testing to see different kinds of mediums and see how they could grow and which could having the better yields for them. And this is by planting from some small stone petals and sand, and they grew the fattest. And then the second one, the original methods, we're just using soil for doing this cutting. You can see their size are much smaller. They are planting on the same date.
Interesting.
And then the third will be just planting with some foam for them, and you can see there's only 1/3 or 1/4 of them left. They're not gas in the future. And then this what we are working on Chinese indigos. We do have seedlings, and we also have cutting for doing planting of them. The second will be those Japanese indigos that everyone mostly we could find worldwide of them. And we're also working on testing about weather. And from this part, they are planted on the 6th of March. And this one part planted on the 11th of March. And you can see they are quite different, but not the main reasons for the differences are not really about the dates, but it's about the weather. Since that on the week of 11th of March, the weather in Hong Kong suddenly dropped about 10 degrees. From 25 to 14 degrees Celsius, so that the speed of them drops much and then stop. I shall say they stop growing. So that we are doing different kinds of testing to make sure we can find nice figures for the future, which just like what temperature will be the best for doing some start of seedlings, how we keep maximize the yields for having the babies so that we can have more to them to transplant from the land. Other than these two kinds, we also have Chinese wood and some European woods in our farm. We'll start testing about wood balls, and then the first pound of wood balls will be ready in this couple months. That's been stored for about 2 years. And then we're to see whether those old days method that we learned from Germany. I don't know why I learned the wood ball method from Germany, but not from South, the original from the wood.
Okay.
And then we also plant from some real indigos from the India, and then some relevant species of those from those true indigos, but they have been transplanted to Taiwan, and they are quite used to the weather in Taiwan. And then since the weather in Hong Kong is quite used to Taiwan comparing to India, so that we also import some of the seeds from them and doing some planting. So we have now about 5 species of indigos in our farm.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's so exciting to see them all in one place and thriving. And I'm interested to know about your weather patterns there and the humidity, and just if you've noticed that there are certain species that thrive and really enjoy the environment that you've cultivated.
Hong Kong is located in the area is still hot, and then most indigo do love living here. Also including the woods. The weather will be, our planting season will be starting from February to September or early October. Then we could have maximized about 3 or 4 harvestings. And then the maximum will be 4 harvestings for out Taiwan and India indigo. And then the weather starting from degrees Celsius, usually in February, and then to the midsummer, about August, the highest will be about 33 to 35 degrees Celsius. And then we never reach about 40 degrees Celsius, but sometimes will be 38 degrees Celsius. And since we do lots of sunshine and lots of rain in summer, so indigo grew love growing at those places. Most significant will be those true indigos and Japanese indigos. They do love sunshine, and we seldom do watering for them, as from some of our testing and research. If we do too much watering, the size of the leaves will be smaller, and then the color will not be that concentrate. So we are now usually about watering once a week when they're in farm and when they're mature. What we say mature is after transplanting for them after 1 month, as we can significantly see they start growing up. Then we'll be turn up watering from daily or maybe twice a day. The frequency will be slightly slow down, then back to watering once a week. But sometimes when the weather is too hot, we'll be watering them a bit twice a week. And usually we'll be watering at 5 p.m. since the sun is start going down the hill. So the weather is not that hot. So it makes sure that when we're doing some watering, they will not be quickly being absorbed into the leaves or maybe dried out, so that they will shrink. So these are the patterns that we are planting those indigos in Hong Kong. But one thing we have to talk about is for those Chinese indigo, they are really not easy planting in the farmland, since they do love humid weather, and they originally live at the riverside, in the forest, in the mountain, so that when we're planting in the farmland, we do have to build shelters for them, and also check about the humidity inside, and do lots of watering, maybe really once a day, to make sure we do make a nice condition for them. Until now, this is the 4th year we are growing Chinese indigos. We are still not having great these yields from them. We still are finding the patterns for growing Chinese indigo in farmland, since we do find some of them do have large leaves, but some of them they do have small, as we usually know that when the Chinese indigos are having in good condition, the size of the leaves could be the size of our palm. But some of them, they have been planted for about 2 to 3 years, but the leaf size is still maybe 2 to 3 fingers. So it's still not easy for us to find the patterns for those Chinese indigo, and we're still working on. But it's good that our Chinese indigo do have seedlings, so that we can keep having testing on them.
That's really exciting. Yeah, and thank you for educating me. I think I mentioned this earlier, but we weren't recording yet, that I didn't know that you could harvest seeds from the Strobilanthes cusia, the Chinese indigo. So that's really exciting. There was maybe some rumors started here. I don't know, maybe it's because we didn't have access to the seeds. And for some reason, I had thought that they can only be propagated and only be started through cuttings, but it's very exciting to see you start yours through seed. And it's really interesting to hear about, the unique conditions that it really needs. It's being a shade-loving plant, being a water-loving plant, and a humid-loving plant. It does seem to need a really special condition. So I'm excited to continue to see your journey with that plant. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. I'm interested to know a little bit about
one more thing about those rumors.
Yeah.
And then for my opinion, that the reason why there will be rumors that those Chinese indigos could be also only planted by cutting is that in those planting methods, or maybe in those commercial planting of those Chinese indigo in China and Taiwan, transplant by cutting is just simply when you're harvesting them, just cut one part of them, just plug them inside the soil, and they will start growing, and they will be start growing new leaves maybe in just 2 weeks, which is much easier,
much
and
faster,
it takes shorter time for getting those seeds, since that some seedings will take about 3 to 4 months for them to be matured, then collect to be dried, and then to replant them, it will take about half year, maybe to 1 year for planting the next crop, so that cuttings will be the farthest. So maybe that's the reason for those rumors.
Yeah, maybe. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it's definitely, it's interesting to see the parallel between it and the Japanese indigo and how well it does from cuttings as well. But being that it's an annual, at least in my environment, do you find that your Japanese indigo acts like a perennial, or is it an annual that you have to start seeds for every year?
Yep, those Japanese indigos are still also annual. And then we have trying to put them inside greenhouse to make sure that they won't die in winter. But when the weather drops to about 12 or 10 degrees Celsius, they do significantly die in few days, or maybe in shrink in few hours. And maybe that's really how the life cycle are. But we have tried to put them inside greenhouse to do some testing by cutting flowers, putting plenty of fertilizers to make them to survive for the second years. They could rebirth, or maybe grow to back to the normal size in the next summer. But when we're testing about the concentration of the pigments, or maybe just slightly by rubbing them, their quality greatly drops a lot, so that we really don't suggest to plant those Japanese indigos or put lots of efforts to keep them alive in the winter. So it's much easier to do some new planting, but it depends on whether you got new seeds or easy to get some seeds for planting them. And from those past testing, really having fresh seeds that collect from the last year, we're having the best result. For seeds placing for the second years, their seedling rate drop about 50%. For if you just put them, one more additional is when those seeds for putting to the second years, when you're putting them inside the fridge or just putting them aside, the seed putting inside the fridge will be having just 30% of seedlings, and putting aside in some nice area will be having 50%. And then when putting them till the third year, the rate will be dropping about 10%. And then we have some old seeds that have stored for about 4 years. And then the growing weight is about, we just plant about 150. And then there are just only 3 plants that growing for the 4th year. So it depends whether you do have the techniques of having nice and mature seeds for keeping. And then that's not easy. We have been working on the 4th years, we still do not could give out any formulas or methods to whether you have the best seedling.
Right, yeah. So fresh seeds from the previous year, are always the best. That's good advice. Yeah, I'm interested to know a little bit more about how you plan your harvests for the year, because you've got the different growth rates with each plant, right? What is that like for you?
We do have a busy harvesting season, and the first season will be start from late May, will be first from those second years India indigos, or from those from Taiwan. They grew rebirth quickly from early March, and then just from 2 months they can do the first harvesting, and then they could have for four times a year. The first one will be the late May, then the second time will be early July, then will be late August, and the last will be at the late October. But the quality for the late October is really, really bad comparing to the season before. So that the reason for why we're harvesting them is to prepare them to winter. So that's why the reason we are having the fourth harvest for those indigos from India. And then for those Japanese indigo, we're having 3 seasons. The first season will be early July to mid-July. The second will be late August and early September. Then the third will be also late October. And then usually when the last week of October or the first week of November, most of them will be start drying out. So that we have 3 seasoning for those 3 harvestings for those Japanese indigos. For Chinese indigos, we mostly are harvesting them from the mountain, the forest. For those we plant in our farm, they are not having that much for making large amount. We usually just have about 10 to 15 kilograms in a farm. So if we'd like to have some large amount of indigos collecting, we have to go to our forest, a mountain, to be harvesting them. And then we just have 2 seasons in the farm. One will be in the mid-summer, usually will be late July and early August. The second will be late September for harvesting them. And for those wood, we do have our seasons that we start planting wood in late August, and then they grew nice in September, and then they will be stay till April to May, passing the years, and then we'll collect them, having 2 collections, which will be one at early November, some fresh leaves for doing some testing, and then the next will be at late April. We do after harvesting them, we'll be start transplanting our Japanese indigo to our farm, and then we seldom tap those wood for the second year, since that also having the same reason, they do have low concentration of the pigment. So that this is how we can having our indigos all year, but as everyone having planting woods, they know that the colors of them are quite pale. So the best season shall be summer. Summer will be the best harvesting season. And then one interesting thing, we're trying to mix and match different kinds of indigo methods by different plants. We trying to use those India indigo and those Chinese indigo for doing supumo. And then we're also using Japanese indigo for making the water extraction. And then also we are also making those Japanese indigo ball. So it's the same method of wood ball, since that, all of them do have indicans. So the periodically shall be suitable for all indigos extracting methods worldwide. So we're now testing about whether we can do some transforming of different kinds of method on different indigo.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Wow, what a busy year you have. There's always some indigo to be picked. I'm amazed that you have time also to create and work into the dye studio as well, and use your product. it's just, you live a life full of indigo, I imagine. It's just indigo all the time.
Yes, and other than indigo, we also have to work on the other natural colorings and food waste color to make sure we do have a large scales in the color. So it's really quite busy on working for natural dyeing.
Yeah, that's wonderful though. It's a beautiful life. I'm curious to know, I'm so fascinated to see your experiments with cross-pollinating the different methods for using, a non-traditionally, say the Chinese indigo, using it for sukumo and drying the leaves. Can you talk a little bit about anything that you've learned or discovered or experiments that have surprised you? Anything to share?
Actually, they do really got similar result as those original methods. Since just taking the wood board as the examples, we do have higher concentration or deeper color by using Japanese indigos and Chinese indigo for making the wood balls. But the main reason is about the concentration from the wood is much lesser from others. And then by comparing water extraction or the sukumo making methods and the wood ball making methods with the Japanese indigos, and then they do have different pros and cons, and the color deepness are similar, because the color deepness are relied on those pigments from the plants. So by having the same harvesting, we're using different kinds of method. They do have similar pigment, similar deep shades from different kind of methods, but the pros part will be by using water extraction method, they will be having fewer supplementations or other mixed items inside when we are turning them into a vat. And as you know, by using sukumo, since that we're not doing any filtration before, so that when we're using them to make the vat, we do have lots of other stuff mixed inside the vat. So that is not easy for us to doing some mixing. So, sometimes the pigment will be undergo sedimentation to the bottom of your vat. So sometimes we do have to mix this up to make sure that the indigants are slightly stirred around inside the vat. But, when we mix them up, those mud or leftover will be all over the pot, so making you have lots of dirts or maybe other stuff stick to your garment. So that's some methods, some reasons. But all kinds of extracting methods, they do go to the same outcome. As I said, they do are having the same outcome. But we discovered that we can do some filtration or purification methods for having more higher pureness of our indigo. I shall get some samples here, just a minute. Okay, here are two samples. It is possible to take a look on the colors on the top. And these are, let me show it. These are from the original.
Here it is,
usually how we are making the indigo paste, and then alcohol on top of it to make sure that they are not easy to get mold. And you can see the layers of the alcohol as yellow. They are not having purification. And then after having purification, this is also the same indigos. You can see the colors of the alcohol are quite pale. And then this method could be used to all kinds of indigo extraction, but this involves wetting. This method is simply just like when after extracting our indigo paste or maybe sukumo, we'll start doing wetting. But after wetting, we'll be heating them up, then adding some vinegar to trying to mix the other stuff. Sometimes it'll be lime and other stuff mixed to others. Acidic soluble solution, heating them up and then doing some purification then we'll be having some more higher concentration and more pure of our indigo pigment, but it really takes lots of time.
Yeah.
And lots of energy, and then my electricity bill will be quite high.
Yeah.
But those are technically possible methods. And then we also read lots of readings in the old days, no matter in Chinese or maybe in Japanese. And then we find out that there are certain kinds of methods. They are just, say, heat extracting method, just like putting all the indigo leaves inside a bronze made container, heat them up to the temperature of 95 degrees Celsius, then adding other stuff to doing extractions. And then we read lots of reading to see whether the extraction method to old days to comparing to the new methods in nowadays, what their difference and how they are trying to make higher concentration that we get, and trying to figure out any new methods for having much more higher concentrations or maybe better yields from our indigo extracting pigments. So that for nowadays, we do have, I shall say, the best, one of the best in Asia, comparing to no matter from China, Taiwan, or Japan, we do have one of the best indigo extracting methods from water extraction. I shall say water extraction only. I'm comparing to those really master in Japan, Tokushima, making the Sukumo. It's still a long way for me to learn from them. But we do got high concentration to about close to 92% of the purification from our indigo paste. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. That's wonderful. You've been really, it's interesting that you get to sample from each of the different kinds of indigo bearing plants and have those comparisons. Do you mix your pigments together after they are extracted, all the different types of indigos, or do you try to keep them separated?
Yep. We do having our own vat. We have one of the largest vats in Hong Kong, which about the volume will be a tons of indigo. And then since we do really lots of testing about our indigos and pigment, after testing, we're not possible to use them up, so we're just pour them back into our large vats.
Okay,
so
yeah,
that
so it has
our
a mix.
Vats will be mixing all kind of indigos, no matter they are having nice quality or maybe some failures.
Yeah.
We'll just pour them inside to make sure that we can be well use them.
That's wonderful. I love that. And what do you usually use for, are you using a fermentation method for your vat, or is it a reduction agent that you're using? What type of vat ingredients other than indigo?
We do have about 6 vats in Hong Kong, and then located in different places. Some will be in our farm, and some will be in our studio, and some will be in our shop. For the vats in the shop will be under chemical methods, since that vats have to provide service or season. And then it's not easy for some of our staff that having our shopkeepers to maintain a vat with those traditional methods, since it's really quite the lesson. And for those vats inside our studio that we usually work on will be mostly by fermentation. And then we do have different kinds of fermentation. One will be by using bananas with sweet potatoes. And then that will be the methods from Vietnam. And then we do have one from the one Sukumo vat with the traditional method from Tokushima, adding the leftover from making the sake inside. And then we have another vat will be using rice grain, just like the vat in Taiwan and China. And then we also have another vat in the studios are using our crazy methods for making it. And those praising method is we are just using rice, leftover rice for undergo some fermentation.
Oh,
And then
okay.
using those notorious outcome of them, adding to the bed, and then the good have a nice result for reducing our VAT, but the flavor is really not easy to describe.
Okay.
So we're having lots of testing and making different kinds of VAT, as it's not easy for our students in Hong Kong to get kinds of solutions for building the VAT. So we are trying to find some homemade items for them to start using the word. So mostly we do suggest them to use bananas and sweet potatoes for making the VAT in Hong Kong in the natural way. Yep.
Yeah, those are wonderful and accessible and easy to get at the market or grow and have leftover waste. The food waste comes in, right? That's wonderful. I'm curious, do you usually use, is it powdered lime? Is it from limestone, or is there any shell lime? Or are you using wood ash?
We do have tried different methods. We didn't try about wood ash. We just have been work on some homemade lime from shells, and then or buying some homemade lime from the internet or from China. But the result of them are quite not acceptable, since that the porosity is really low, and then we got lots of mixture or other stuff. We got thick paste, we got low porosity, which about only having 40-something% at our outcome. And for now, we are now using lime that are edible with 96% porosity, and then they're import from Japan, and they are once used for bakery, for making our indigo. And then comparing to those for commercial use or maybe farm use lime, they do have more smooth pigment, more smooth in the texture, and then they will not be soaked in a large paste size, and then smooth. When you're just rubbing them in hand, you will feel that there will be really a great difference compared using those construction lime or maybe lime for the farm. Right. And then the porosity for those construction or the farm use will be something about 60 to 69%, and then which means the other will be just adding the stuff that you don't want.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I also do the same. I found that the food grade lime here is a lot better quality than the hardware, the builder's lime or the gardening lime. We're experimenting with our shell lime.
Costs really a lot.
Those lime. And it has a short shelf life, right? It's you need to use it. You need to use the lime, or it.
Yes. But we use a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm sure you go through it a lot quicker than I do. Wow. Okay, this is so fascinating. I feel like we could talk forever, but I want to know just a little bit more about how the Dyelicious Dye House kind of evolved, and what projects you're working on, and how the Indigood House connects. And what services kind of do you offer to the community as far as education and products? And tell us a little bit about how you got into making things for.
Yes, we do lots of educations, no matter from workshops or maybe online workshops. And then we put most of the time are having program with schools. We start teaching them planting indigos, about the history of the Hong Kong local indigos and about the craftsmanship. And then we wish students to enjoy or learn about the process of how the currents are getting in the old days and how they are eco-friendly, non-polluting comparing to synthetic dyes, and we do lots of educations and also lots of experience for citizens in Hong Kong to enjoy the good of indigos. And we do put lots of efforts on also educate them about how to increase the durable for indigo's garment, and then how to make them not easy to be washed out, and about how to distinguish about the quality of indigos, and also the garments, which are from synthetics, which are from natural indigos, to make sure they buy the nice and good stuff. Mm-hmm. And then we also work on different projects. We work on lots of. We work on food waste coloring, to telling about the story about the food waste issues, how severe in Hong Kong, which we're seeing about 360,000 tons. Oh no, 3,600 tons per day, generating food waste in Hong Kong, and how they can be used in other usage for making colorants or else. And then we're trying to doing some samples for other dyeing studios. For Hong Kong, we're trying to improving the technologies, the methods, the dyeing skills, and then bringing knowledge from the worldwide to them, inviting guest speakers, ordering books that they are not easy to access from the internet, that cannot get in Amazons. And then lots of stuff. We're just trying to make the communities about natural dyings in Hong Kong to be easier to be accessed, resources to be easy to access, to be in Hong Kong. And then for Dyelicious, we started in 2012, and for that is trying to promote the possibilities of food waste color, and then the ore scale of natural color, starting from not just only indigos, but for also red, orange, yellow, blue, green, purple, and then also having some new insight of mixing up colors, just like what synthetic dye could do, since that some people will be taking the advantage of using synthetic dye is because they are easy to use, they can mix up new colors easily. So that we're having new DIY set is just pouring hot water inside our pigment powders, and then wait for about 15 minutes, then you can be using it up just like those other commercial synthetic dye products, but you have to wait 10 minutes more. And then we also develop some microwave use natural dyes kit set, just like the Ritz kit set that also put inside a microwave for about 30 seconds, then you can got the nice color. We do also have the same, but you have to put inside a microwave for several times, but each time we'll be microwaving about 1 minute, and then having nice color. And then we're just trying to find lots of possibilities and solution of the color ones, and we have to get used to the habits of the citizens in Hong Kong, that they're having a fast pace, then they also just like new stuff, and then so we keep making new things for them and trying to do some nice garment, nice dress and skirt for ladies. They are IGable, and then they're good for photo taking. So that we work lots of stuff. And then for Indigood House, we're trying to, since that we do have lots of information that posting from Dyelicious, so we're trying to separate our products line to Indigood House, and also our replanting projects in Hong Kong into Indigood House. And then that will be focused more on how we're planting and growing Hong Kong-based indigo, and how we can make use of them and turn into nice products that difficult to distinguish from whether they are from nowadays synthetic products or whether they are natural products. Yep.
Right. Wow, that's wonderful that you are able to teach kids from a young age just about how the indigo plants are growing and educate them about natural dyes. I'm curious to know, what is the response of the children in school when they see the natural dye process? How do they react to it?
Most of them, they do really got new insights, as they really don't know that colorants could be growing from plants. And then they could go through the methods why the plants are looking green, that they can extracting blue from those indigos and the working process, and they have to retake times or bring the indigos that usually will be distributing each student a plant, and they'll have to take a look and take after them. And then we do a bad thing is each student have to take good care of their own plants. If the plants have any problems or they just shrink or die, we will not be redistributing them. Then they will have to ask for sharing from the other classmates yep, to make sure to having know that for the farmers and the plants grower, they do really take lots of efforts for growing the stuff and crops for them. And yes, getting them to know about how the realistic are. And
how much
also,
work it is.
The latest project is because, you know, about the COVID, we are now starting lots of online program that we haven't been used to in Hong Kong, since that people could be easily travel around to our studios. Maybe just the maximum will be an hour half traveling time. And then we're now start working on some videos, and the new series will be Stitching Shibori. And the reason is about after joining different groups on the Facebook and from internet worldwide, others indigo lovers, maybe from Europe, they are quite interested in the Chinese or the Japanese traditional shibori methods or stitching shibori, as sometimes they are not easy to access to the materials in Chinese or maybe in Japanese, as I can those read through them and I can easily communicate with the master. So I'm trying to combine the knowledge into videos in Chinese subtitles, in English and English subtitles for worldwide indigo lover to be having easier access, since, you know, some of our students have moved to the UK or other regions in the world due to the issues in Hong Kong, and they are not easy to access, or finding some teachers in other places to be get used to the knowledge that they have been working on, since that by reading different kinds of materials or research paper, it really have difference from Asia and the European side of how to treat with indigos, including the vetting method, since the most common using method will be iron vet in European, but in Asia they are using rice bran or maybe using sakir for making the vat. So it takes me about few months that as being locked in home due to the COVID to learn about new knowledge from English medium.
Yeah, oh, that's exciting to learn that you'll have access, or we will have access to classes online. And I hope you'll share those in the group with us as well, because there's a lot of folks here I know who'd be really interested to learn from you. I'd be one of them. I'm interested to learn.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Wow. And can you talk a little bit about some of the traditional Chinese dye techniques, and maybe even how they're different from some of the Japanese techniques? I think a lot of people, at least here in the US, when they think of the word shibori or tie-dye, they immediately think of a lot of the Japanese techniques, but I know that there's many different styles, right?
This is a long story, and I think this could be talked about for hours.
Okay.
But let me to make it short.
Yeah, thank you.
For mostly will be about patterns. Okay, I just take the samples of stitching shibori to talk about it. Mostly about the patterns for those in Chinese. They'll be quite having patterns of traditional figures, just like usually having flowers or butterfly. Let me see whether I can just get them here. Yep, I got one here.
Okay.
Okay. This is kind of actually, this is kind from the new style of the Chinese. And the reason how having this new style is they do have to do some export garments for selling worldwide to European or to Japan. But so they are start changing their traditional story figures to some pattern wise, just like flowers. But in the old days, they usually do this pattern for worship the god, just like making in the dragons, or maybe in Yunnan, what we call Miuzhou, one of their civilizations over there. They use batik to drawing and also use stitching. They usually draw the goddess on their garments as to worship them, or maybe to wear on them to doing some goodwills of the gods. And then, but those designs are not quite used to nowadays. So that they are now changing to those new style that easy to be sold on online or internet. And then for the Japanese, they are both places, they do really focus on small and niche design. But in Japanese, they are usually to have repeating patterns, and then they are trying to make those patterns as more and as detailed as possible. But in Chinese, the patterns are usually having a frame, maybe having a double fold stitching at the outer part of the garments, having a square, and trying to put different kinds of pattern, mix and match all the pattern inside one cloth. But in Japanese, usually they were trying to make the same cloth or having the same patterns, repeating patterns. And then, but they do take lots of time to making of it. And in Japanese, they do develop different kinds of equipment for them, just like some bamboo rack, having some needles on it to make sure they can easily hook their cloth on it. But in Chinese, they were just using the simply stitching by using the needles, and then sometimes adding a little bit wax on the needle for doing the stitching, for doing them. And then for nowadays, there are some differences. This may be the secret of them. Over 80% of the garment in China, or as I was saying in Yunnan, are from synthetic dye, not real indigo, but they are also dyeing in the color of indigo, as their cost will be lower, and then there are not much old farmers are still planting indigos in the Yunnan area, so that in the recent 5 years, the Chinese government or the local governments are start to push farmers to doing their own culture to grow indigos again, so that they're still easily to find their synthetic dyes of the garments, but they are still naming they're from natural indigos. Since that in Chinese, the word is the same, we call that lam. And in Putonghua it will be lan. And then they are just talking about their lan dan, the lam yim. They are just dyed by blue, so that it's not easy to classify if you are not an experienced indigo lover. So that there are still some kind of issues in this in China. Also for me, I've also been trapped for those garment product in China. As in the old days, that I'm not quite used to distinguish them. But at this time in Japan, I still find that their garments are clearly classified, they're whether synthetic or they're natural colors. And then they dye really much more times for having a deep color, but sometimes in China, they do have only outcomes in light color to make sure they're saving their time costs. So lots of stuff to be talking about on this. Then maybe in the future we can have another sharing about on that. This could help me to talk for hours.
Yeah, me too. We could all probably listen to you chat about this for a long time.
Yep.
That's really fascinating. Thank you for sharing just some of the differences I wasn't aware of myself. It's really fascinating to learn about just all of the different ways people have developed for resisting and stitching and waxing, and the paste resists, the clamp resists. There's just, it's overwhelming almost how many different techniques there are. So it's fascinating to learn just about some of those unique things. I'll be looking for that now when I'm looking at textiles, Yeah. And then just to kind of change a little bit of subject, I'm wondering for you and the people that you work with at the dye house, what is the future of indigo? What are the future of the natural dyes? What are some of your goals and hopes for production and for community and education?
The hopes for we Dyelicious is there's not much artists or maybe not much producers we're focusing so deep in indigos or natural colorants in Hong Kong. And we shall say we are the really fourth goer to bring about the insights for the citizens in Hong Kong to take a look on those natural colors. So what we believe is if we do stop or we get rid of this field, there will be no one could be telling as much knowledge or much stories about natural colors, no matter from foodways or indigos in Hong Kong. So this is one of the reasons that we keep working on it. And then for the future, we still got lots of stuff to do. Comparing to other masters, no matter in Taiwan, China, or Japan, or maybe from UK, they do mastering in the good skills or maybe in the specialists. So we wish to make ourselves could be one of the specialists in the worldwide. We're talking about stories since we are still young. We just have about 10 years on working in the field of dyeing. And then for those masters, they have been working on about 30 years or 60 years. For those masters in Japan, they've been putting their whole life inside it. So what we are working on, we are trying to really put our whole life inside and in the field of dyeing and show more possibilities. There's still lots of ways that we can be working on, no matter from how to get nice indigos or maybe having some easier methods for people to home get indigos from the plants until all the color mixing and to get nice different shades of indigos. And there's still lots of stuff that we can do. We're just trying to make everything about indigo, the natural color, to be more easier for people to access, trying to do some translation of readings, and then to make our supporters, to make our fans to keep their eyes on natural colors, get used to it, get loving in it, and willing to put the lives in them, willing to spend more on them, willing to support all the communities about natural colors worldwide, and then wishing them when they're all going travel along the place, or maybe one day they're going to UK or US, they could be easily find some nice master just like you, or maybe getting other kinds of indigo knowledge, or maybe when they're migrating to other cities, they can also use this for making as what they earn for living. So we really have lots of stuff to do, and we're really taking lots of master or other fourth goer as our models to be maybe working one day will be just like them. Yes.
Yeah, this is wonderful. It's very inspirational just to hear about your personal journey and how you discovered natural dyes and indigo, and you have just a magnetic, voracious appetite for learning about the history and the methods and all the different indigo plants. I can see that you really are putting your life into this work, and that's really beautiful. It's very inspirational to witness. Thank you. And thank you for sharing in English.
Oh, it's fine.
I appreciate that. and this audience, you know, here in the US.
I do wish that I can speak some English, and could read English could be helping to translate some more knowledge in Chinese or Japanese to English users.
Yeah,
yes, to
and
make
I would
everyone
like
to be easier to access with it.
I would like to learn also more, you know, Chinese, Cantonese information as well. What is the name for indigo in Chinese? How would you say?
So, we will say that lam, and which is the word. Later that I just type it out on.
Okay.
I just type it out on the.
I can write it here.
And this is, we called it lam in Cantonese, and in Chinese we call it lan. And this is mentioning about the color of blue, and also the color of indigo. And then for talking about the indigo place, they will call it lam din. Let me type it out. And this is in Chinese called lan dian. And this is talking about the indigo paste that we are making out.
Okay.
Yes, lam din. And then, okay, one more. And this is lam din so. And in Chinese, it's lan dian su, which is talking about indican. So that you can see it's quite interesting that they're just adding one more word.
Yeah.
And then they will got a new meaning of it. So starting from lam, the first one is called a color. And the second one, lam din, is what we are, the indigo paste. And then lam din so will be the indican.
Okay.
And then, one extra more.
Yeah.
Lam chou is talking about all the plants of indigo.
Okay.
And then, then let's have our Cantonese lesson on
thank
indigo.
you. I love this.
Chinese indigo, which we call ma lam.
Okay.
And then for the first one, ma is horse in Chinese. So it's not easy to explain why Chinese indigo is called ma lam, which if we are direct translating English is called horse blue.
Oh, interesting.
It's very hard to explain. And
Yep.
And Japanese indigo is called liu lam. Oh, typo error. Japanese indigo is called liu lam.
Okay.
And then this is the same as awa ai, which in Japanese Tokushima. Yes, and in Chinese word is liu lam. And they got lots of story as the Japanese indigos are original from China. And in the Tang Dynasty, they are being imported into Japan. And so that the Japanese indigo, they also have an other word is called lam. It's so difficult on learning Chinese about indigo. Lam. And then the first word is about the Three Kingdom dynasty in China, and one of the kingdom is called the Woad dynasty. And then at that time, those Japanese indigos are planted in the Woad kingdom, so that they name them lam. And then there's still interesting story that the word lam, which the second word is also means in the old days in Chinese wording is mean all the plants that they can give out pigment, no matter they are called having indigos or maybe red. So the mender in Chinese old words are called hong lam fa. And then these are the mender which usually having red in nowadays. The old words will be the three words which call hong lam fa. The first one will be representing the color of red, hong, and then lam is mean this plant is having a red color. And then the third word, fa, is these plants do have flowering. So they call that hong lam fa for Mandarin. But now they call that xin chou. So it's really, really hard for learning Chinese, as that the same word, they will have lots of explanation.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Oh, thank you for that. That was really wonderful to learn about. I'm trying to post them all to the Facebook group. I might have to copy them. I'll make sure
maybe I shall get a post on talking about these few words.
Yeah, oh, that would be great.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's interesting to see the correlation between in the Latin word, they use the word tinctoria a lot, right, to describe something that has tint or something that has pigment or something that has color in it. That gets added on a lot to the other dye plants too. Excuse me. Well, this has been really wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit. I know we could talk even more, and I hope we do again here in the group about your story. But would you just tell us about your website and how we can follow your journey, your YouTube? I did post 2 of the videos that you sent me, so I will make sure to connect this live video with your other posts so people can see those YouTube videos. But just tell us about how we can follow your journey, how we can keep learning about your classes online.
Yep. We are now keep posting our story through Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, so that we wish everyone could be easy to get access on how we're working on indigo, and the methods of making indigos are not that secret. Sometimes people do think that, oh, it's this mystery on how turning those indigos from plants, and it's not easy to learn about it. So we're trying to make it more easier to access, so that you can follow on our Instagram and Facebook. We're now start working on more English medium on our posts. And then we can also be accessing through our videos on YouTube, that we usually post lots of interesting stories, just like the 2 videos that we have been sending you. It's about how we're planting indigo and how we're extracting them and making colors in Taiwan and in Hong Kong, and then trying to show more insights for people in worldwide in the mystery in Asia.
Yeah. And
then do follow our Facebook and Instagram, and do feel free to ask me any question, no matter on Facebook, Instagram, or maybe in the group. And we do willing and wish to talk about more and about the story, since that sometimes Asia is really a mystery place for European because of the language barrier. And then, also from some group members, they do talk about that it's not easy to communicate with the master, since they do just only know about the long language, the Mandarin, or maybe the Japanese, and they do just quite really little of English. And then for me, about 6 years to 8 years before I've been going to Japan, I also faced the same problem, and I communicate with the master mainly 90% by drawing. Communicate by drawing and writing some Chinese words, since then, Japanese, sometimes they know a little bit about Chinese words. And then, so it makes me to learn about Japanese, and now I'm a little bit used to Japanese, so that no matter for readings or communicating, is easier for me. Try to grab those knowledge from those masters. I still say the master in Japan is really do a great master, and they do have lots of knowledge, but the knowledge are not easy to be accessed in other language. So feel free to ask me, or maybe do some translation. I'm happy doing with it.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your generosity and just sharing with the group as often as you do, and here with us today. I'm excited to connect with you and just to learn more about
my pleasure
you.
Also.
Yeah, thank you. There's lots of comments and just people watching and saying hi on the Facebook group. I'll let you read the comments later. There was one question that Paula had at chat, and it was
Hi, Paula.
Yeah, you know each other. She was wondering just a little bit more about the history of Chinese indigo, the Strobilanthes, cusia. I'm wondering, do you have any resources that you could recommend for people who want to learn more about that plant specifically?
Since most data or those historical figures were collected by verbally, and then there are not much materials in the internet, so they are mostly are now written in our hands. So we do have to do some sorting, and then to see whether I have time to write them out.
Yeah.
So that this will be the main difficulties for readings about or maybe learning about the historical facts about the Chinese indigo in Hong Kong, since there are really no any written records, no matter from the old days or any researcher to working on it, since you know, the lifestyle in Hong Kong are not quite used to handcraft or maybe farming. So we really take lots of time to get those verbal knowledge or data. So we do have to sort them out to write another passage or a research outcome to make sure that we can place it out. So Paula, please wait for maybe months or a year. This is on our schedule, but I have to see when would you have time to work on it. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, well, I just appreciate what we did chat a little earlier, and I'm not sure when Paula was able to jump into the live, but you did talk a little bit about the Hakka blue and the indigo. So maybe rewind when we're done with this recording as well and watch back a little bit more about that. And I appreciate your desire to pass along the knowledge and to make sure that it doesn't die away.
Yep. Since I do think if one day when I pass away, you know, life is really matters. Yep. So we do spend lots of time on learning the knowledge from others, so that if we not possible to leave them behind, it will be wasting the efforts that we will be working before. So we do wish to do some sorting out and write them down to do some not publication, but maybe some blog or post for people to be easy to access to them. No, not like us to have to be spending about 3 to 4 months going different places, talking with different grannies, and then trying to, as most grannies said, they're in the mind of the old days when they're small. It seems that their old days are like blah, blah, blah. So we have to clarify whether this is true or whether they do add some of their imagination inside. It's really hard for that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I really appreciate your willingness to share, and I've learned so much already today from you. Thank you. I'm sure the folks at home watching this have learned as well, and I'll make sure to tag you in the post so that you can go and read the comments and interact with the group as well. So again, I just want to thank you for sharing your story today, and I want to thank everyone who's watching. And just as a little closure for the series, Blue Biographies for the season, I want to thank all of the participants who've shared their stories with us in the group. I want to thank everyone who's watched and been inspired. This is the last episode for 2022. I do hope to start again in the January to March of 2023 with more new interviews with new stories. This has been an incredibly inspiring experience for me, just to learn more about the world, not just about indigo, but learn indigo has been the medium through which I've learned about different languages, cultures, and methods. So thank you to everyone who is witnessing these stories. If you want to learn more, you can click the link and watch all of the previous episodes. There's 38 episodes to catch up on. And thank you again to Eric for being here today.
Pleasure. It's also our pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you.